Our next demonstration is floor debate. Floor debate takes place when the House of Representatives or Senate is in session. Here, the presiding officers will be referred to as Mr. or Madam Speaker in the House and Mr. or Madam President in the Senate. There are a few differences between committee and floor debate. If the bill being debated is being considered in its house of origin, then the person presenting the bill should be the bill author. If the bill has passed in its chamber of origin and is then being debated in the other chamber, the person presenting the bill will be the bill sponsor. After the bill is laid out by the presiding officer, the author or sponsor still gives his or her opening remarks. The next period is still the question and answer period, but in floor debate, this period is limited to 10 minutes. During that time, the members of the chamber are allowed to ask the bill author or sponsor one question. If they desire to ask more questions, the members must ask specifically if the author or sponsor will yield to more than one question. They're not allowed to question the author again unless unanimous consent is given from the chamber. In floor debate, instead of proponent-opponent debate following the question and answer period, the amendment period takes place next. Other than the amendment period coming earlier in floor debate, it is exactly the same as committee debate. Having the amendment period first gives the proponent-opponent speakers the opportunity to debate the final version of the bill. After the amendments have been considered by the chamber, the proponent-opponent period then follows. During floor debate, the speakers for and against the bill will alternate. A proponent speaker speaks first, followed by an opponent speaker. This order is repeated until all speakers have been heard. Please note that floor debate must always end with an opponent speaker, even if several proponents have to speak successively. After all speakers have been heard, the bill author or sponsor will be recognized to give his or her final summation. Following the final summation, a motion of due passage of the bill is in order. The most common motion in floor debate for disposition of a bill is I move for due passage of this bill, or I move for due passage of this bill as amended. If a bill passes one chamber, it is sent to the other chamber to be debated. If a bill passes both the House and the Senate with the same amendments, the bill is then sent to the youth governor to either be signed into law or vetoed. In today's demonstration, the actors will be debating a bill that is passed in the House and is now being presented in the Senate. Please note that at the district and state conferences, there will be many more students in floor debate than we have actors today.
The Senate will now come to order. My name is Jerry McCluskey, and I will be presiding over this session. And this is Maddie Medill, and she will be my clerk. The first bill on the docket is House Bill number 67. Will the clerk please read the caption of House Bill 67?
An act relating to the mandatory bearing of firearms in Texas and declaring an emergency.
Seeing that this is a House bill, is the bill sponsor present? The bill sponsor should not come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Azim Hussain, Fort Worth Northwest YMCA. Ladies and gentlemen of this Senate, today there is a bill in front of you, and it's an act relating to the mandatory bearing of firearms in the state of Texas and declaring it an emergency. Now, the reason why I have brought this up is not because of the pride in Texas that we want to have the right to bear arms or we need to protect ourselves constantly. No, the reason why is because it needs to be mandated so not only can the citizens protect ourselves, but we can lower crime rate. Now, there is a common perception in Texas and common perception in this country that firearms relate to death. That is false. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, it says for every death related to gun, 65 people are protected. 65 people are protected. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, this legislature had passed a bill 6 months ago mandating that guns may be allowed on college campuses. Now, because that is allowed on college campuses, we have seen a 22% drop in gun crimes. Just in 6 months, 22%. No one can argue statistics, whether you're conservative, liberal, whether you're Democratic or Republican. No one can argue numbers because numbers don't lie and numbers are not prejudicial. And the numbers clearly state that 22% of gun crimes have dropped since the initial of House Bill 38, which was a House bill to allow guns on campuses. Now, I understand that when you look through this bill, there is a concern about 18-year-olds not having concealed handgun license. I will be open for an amendment to change that. I did believe in my essence that in the provision it did change that, but it's not clearly written, so I will be open for an amendment to change concealed handgun license to 18. Now, why 18? Well, the same reason why 18-year-olds get to vote. 18-year-olds get to smoke. It's the same concept. The concept being that as an 18-year-old in the state of Texas, the state recognizes you as an adult. However, I understand that you're not allowed to drink because that is a national law, and if it was up to me and up to the state legislator without any permission from the national government, we would change that to 18. But aside from that, 18-year-olds are going into the business world nowadays because of a rough economy to support the families. 18-year-olds are working in areas that are not necessarily safe, in urban environments that they have never been to. 18-year-olds are going to colleges that necessarily are not the safest grounds. For example, a prominent university in this area, Texas Christian University, in the last 3 months, there have been 8 cases of rape. In the last 3 months, there have been 12 cases of muggings. Not on campus, but around campuses. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not sending a message to the citizens of Texas. This isn't sending a message to the people who commit crime in the state of Texas. That Texas will protect itself. That Texas, the citizens of Texas, have the right to protect themselves. Now, I understand for some reasons there should be exceptions. And I will be open for another amendment to put an exception that if for some religious reason you're not allowed to carry guns, you may be exempt from that. But other than that, I believe everyone should carry a gun. And just because you're carrying a gun doesn't mean you can fire it, because the purpose of having a gun is for protection. It does not have to be loaded. You are more inclined not to attack a person if you know that they can protect themselves. Just like every person out there doesn't go to a police officer and starts beating them up because they know they can protect themselves, mainly because they have a gun. And everyone knows that. Ladies and gentlemen, a town in New Hampshire had enacted a law similar to this by mandating a gun be placed in every single home. Before this bill, they had a 62% crime rate involving weapons, including firearms. After this bill, only 1 year later, that had dropped to 12%. All crimes were committed with a weapon. 12%. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time now to act. The time is not to act tomorrow. The time is not to act yesterday. The time is to act now. Because if we don't act now, then we cannot protect ourselves.
Time has been called. We will now move to the author question and answer period. Please note that as opposed to committee, this is a 10-minute period. Also, all amendment forms will be due by the end of this period. Are there any questions for the bill's sponsor?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the lady rise?
Sarah Pena, Midland YMCA, I rise to question the bill's sponsor with a brief lead-in.
Does the bill sponsor yield?
I do.
I just want to point out that in section D of the provisions, it relates to what citizens on welfare would have to do if they cannot afford their required handgun. It says that it will be provided by the state of Texas, but then it says that the individual's welfare would be affected. So if the gun is to be provided to the citizen, then why is their welfare being affected?
To answer your question, we have to subsidize the cost because I don't expect the taxpayers' money to pay for somebody who's on welfare. Because welfare is distributed by state now, the state can do that, and we will subsidize the cost over time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Will Bergen Forward member of YMCA, I rise to ask the bill author a possible series of questions.
I remind you that this is the bill sponsor, but does the bill sponsor yield?
I yield no more than 3.
why is it that in the actual bill, it states that if somebody does not renew their license at the age of 18, that they will not have to get the handgun?
Because in the state of Texas, when you're 16 and 17, when you apply for a driver's license after you're 16 and 17, you get a 4-year driver's license. And when you're 17, 4 years, you don't have to renew at 18. You can renew at 21. So for the individuals who don't have time to renew at 18 because they're going to college or they're in the working field and they don't have time to do it, they can do it after the 21. But 21 is the cutoff time. If they don't get it by 21, then they will be penalized.
What about for the people who do not have a driver's license or don't wish to obtain one?
As it states in the bill, when an individual citizen obtains a marriage license, pays taxes, or registers to vote, or any governmental affiliation program, they will have to get their mandatory class and obtain a firearm by the age of 21. If they don't wish to have a driver's license, that's up to them. It will be easier on traffic.
Are there any further questions for the bill sponsor?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Stephen Hayworth with the said YMCA.
Point of order.
State your point.
He's not in business attire.
I'm sorry, you're out of order, delegate. Are there any further questions for the bill sponsor?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Nathan Capper, Houston YMCA. I rise to ask the bill sponsor a question.
Does the bill sponsor yield?
I yield to a question.
What exactly will be taught in this educational course?
How to properly use a firearm and all the necessary safety precautions about using a firearm and when to actually use a firearm and how to carry a firearm.
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Stephen Hayworth with the said YMCA. I rise to ask the bill sponsor a possible series of questions.
Does the bill sponsor yield?
I yield to no more than 4.
I'm noting, maybe I'm missing it, but I'm noting in the bill that convicted felons are not addressed at all. So would this law apply to them also? Would convicted felons also be required to own a firearm?
According to the state of Texas, convicted felons are not allowed to have a concealed handgun license, so therefore that will override it. So, I mean, if you want to make an amendment to it, but as it states in our law right now, convicted felons will not be able to carry a firearm.
The repealer clause states that all laws or parts of laws in conflict are repealed. So would that not repeal the other law?
It will not because it does not address convicted felons directly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the lady rise?
Alex Snyder, El Paso, YMCA. I rise to ask the bill sponsor a possible series of questions.
Does the bill sponsor yield?
I yield no more than 5.
Are you aware that your bill allows those who promote anti-violence to always have deadly weaponry on them at all times?
Yes.
And you're okay with that? You're okay with our people possibly being in danger?
Are there any further questions for the bill sponsor?
Mr. President.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
We'll bring forward member YMCA. I rise to ask the bill sponsor a possible question.
Point of order.
State your point.
The member has already asked a question.
Seeing that this member has already asked a question, are there any objections? Seeing none, does the bill sponsor yield?
To a question.
Yes. In the bill, it states that they'd be required to take a firearm education course. Would a concealed handgun license course be involved in this, or would they have to retake that separately?
I think that would be the same course.
Are there any further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, we'll now move to the amendment period. Please note that all proponents and opponents have subdued by the end of this period. Will the clerk please read the title of the first amendment on the table?
Legalizing the ownership of a concealed handgun license at the age of 18 instead of 21.
The amendment author shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Brigham, forward member of YMCA. The only reason I put this into like an amendment is because it does state it in the bill, but it's not as clear as it could be. So, because you have to be 21 to get a concealed handgun license, and this is stating at 18. So just to be able to legalize it at 18, so there would be no conflict with the bill. And I yield my time to the chair.
The speaker has yielded his time. The bill author shall now have 2 minutes to, the bill sponsor shall now have 2 minutes to respond to this amendment.
I am in favor of this amendment, and I hope you guys are too.
All right, seeing that the bill sponsor is for this amendment, would anyone like to speak against this amendment? Seeing none, the amendment author shall now close the debate for a time not to exceed 1 minute.
Will Brigham, forward member of YMCA. Just a reiteration. It's just a clarification amendment. It's not, I'm in complete favor of this bill, so I just hope you put this bill into the, or this amendment into the bill. And I yield my time to the chair.
The speaker has yielded his time to the chair. We will now vote on this amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. In the eyes of the chair, the ayes do have it, and this amendment is adopted. Will the clerk please read the caption of the next amendment?
This law will not apply to convicted felons. Add to provisions.
The amendment author shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Sarah Pena, Midland YMCA. I chose to write out this amendment to add to this bill so that there's a clarification that this does not address, or it addresses the felons who are not required to have the handguns. And I yield the remainder of my time.
The speaker has yielded her time. The bill sponsor shall now come forward to respond to this amendment.
In my expert opinion, I believe the state already has a law for this, so I believe that it's unnecessary and makes this bill longer than it's needed to be. So I'm not for this amendment. Thank you.
By his actions, he has yielded his time to the chair. The amendment author shall now close debate for a time not to exceed 1 minute.
Although I respect the bill author's opinion of this amendment, I disagree, and I would just like to say this is just for clarification purposes so that there are no questions and it is set and it is done. So I yield the remainder of my time.
The speaker has yielded her time. We will now vote on this amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
In the eyes of the chair, the nays do have it, and this amendment is not adopted. We will now move to the next amendment. Will the clerk please read the caption of the next amendment on the table?
Section 2, line 28. If for religious purposes you are against the bearing of firearms, you are exempt from the penalties of this law.
The amendment author shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Alex Snyder, El Paso, YMCA. I'm not for this bill, sorry for that, but if it does pass, this amendment will be highly recommended for the freedom of practical religion of the people. Although I agree strongly with the bill sponsor's initial ideas and attempts to solve the problem this bill is trying to fix, I cannot vote for it based on some unclear thoughts stated in the execution and religious freedom the bill ignores. Religion is a given freedom of the people of the state of Texas, and in no way should we disrespect and glaze over those rights. I urge you to vote for this amendment. However, if the amendment is not adopted, I urge you not to vote for this bill, and I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
The speaker has yielded her time to the chair. The bill sponsor shall now come forward to respond to this amendment for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
I believe there should be, this amendment should be adopted just because there are religions out there that do practice against gun violence, against guns, such as Buddhism and monks of that religion. So I am in complete favor of this amendment. Thank you.
The speaker has yielded his time to the chair. Seeing that the bill sponsor is for this amendment, would anyone like to speak against this amendment?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the lady rise?
Sarah Pena, Midland YMCA, I rise to speak against this amendment.
You may speak.
Sarah Pena, Midland YMCA, I rise to speak against this amendment because I think that people can just say what they want, and if they say they are with a religion that does not require the handguns or allow them to conceal them, then they will not follow this bill just to get out of purchasing a firearm or just to not have that license. And I yield the remainder of my time.
The speaker has yielded her time. The amendment author shall now come forward to close the debate for a time not to exceed 1 minute.
Alex Snyder, El Paso, YMCA. I first want to thank you for your opinions on my amendment, but I do not agree because if the state government can trust our people to elect our officials, then why can't they trust us to say our religions and believe in that? And I just think it would be disrespectful to be questioning someone on their own religion. And I yield the remainder of my time.
The speaker has yielded her time. We will now vote on this amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
In the eyes of the chair, the nays do have it, and this amendment is not adopted.
Division.
Division has been called and will be recognized. We will now take a standing vote. All those in favor, please stand. You may sit down. All those against, please stand. You may sit down. This amendment is not adopted. We'll now move to, the next amendment on the table. Will the clerk please read the caption of the next amendment?
There are none.
Seeing none, we'll now move to proponent-opponent debate period. Will the clerk please read the name of the first proponent speaker?
Austin Pruitt.
Austin Pruitt shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Austin Pruitt, Austin YMCA. I would like to speak in favor of this bill for several reasons. The first reason is, I don't know if many of you are aware of it, but in Switzerland, every household is issued an automatic weapon by the government. And it just so happens that Switzerland has a very, very low crime rate, and it also has an extremely low gun crime rate. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers are there, but I know they are very, very low. Another good point that I know is mentioned very, very often, but it's true. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Criminals are the ones who are going to end up hurting people with weapons. And the law-abiding citizens aren't going to be doing that. So I think that definitely needs to be stated, although I'm sure everyone has heard it several times. Another good point that I think should be mentioned is that in Washington, D.C., the gun control is very, very strict. And in Washington, D.C., the gun crime rate is actually higher than in any other place in the nation. And I don't think that's a coincidence. When you take the guns away from the law-abiding citizens, you're going to end up with a higher crime rate because the criminals are going to get their weapons. They're going to get the guns. We know that. They're going to get them through the black market, and it doesn't matter what the laws are. They're going to get the weapons that they need. And that concludes my statement. I would like to...
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
We'll bring forward member YMCA. I rise to ask the speaker a friendly question.
Does the speaker yield?
Yes, I do.
Are you aware that Switzerland
Time.
I'm
is
sorry, time has been called. Please note that
Neutral
in
country.
floor debate, we will alternate proponent and opponent speakers. So, will the clerk please read the name of the next opponent speaker?
There Cahuta.
Clerk Cahoon should now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Claire Cahoon, Dallas Town North Delegation. While I am all for guns and freedom, I am significantly more for freedom than I am for guns. I think guns are a personal choice, and that this bill is offensive because it requires people to carry around weapons of murder while they may not religiously or personally believe that murder is good. Another point is that the Texas population is growing rapidly than any other state in the country, and to be quite honest, this bill is a little bit scary, whether it actually is or not in reality. It appears to be scary, and Texas is already known for being a little bit trigger happy, and I think that this is going to scare away immigrants from other states and other countries that may want to move their businesses to Texas. In addition, gun licenses require a lot of time and they require a lot of money. We're going to be taking away time from people who need to be in the workforce, making money, putting money into our economy. They're going to be having to take this class. And in addition to that, we're going to be having to pay for teachers and for the buildings for these classes, and we don't have the money to do that right now.
Mr.
This-
President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
This
As he was
bill
saying,
takes away
forward
money
members
for
once
food
again
and other
asked to
necessities from
ask
welfare
two
recipients,
questions
as
to
it
the
states in the, I will not yield to any
Is this-
questions.
Speaker, really? No.
This bill will be taking away money from welfare recipients, as it states in the bill. And even if you're going to help them out over time, initially it will take away money. And some of these people have children to pay for, and they have all sorts of necessities that they will not be able to pay because now they're forced to pay for a gun. Again, I am all for guns, but this bill will make Texas hostile and will take us from being the fastest growing state to the most dangerous state.
Mr. President.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
We'll bring forward member YMCA. I rise to ask the speaker a possible series of friendly questions.
Does the speaker yield?
Nowhere in the bill does it state the person should have to use this concealed handgun. So what is the point to not pass this bill?
Time.
Time has been called.
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Nathan Capper, Houston YMCA, I rise to make a motion
State the nature of your motion.
concerning tabling of the bill.
I will not recognize that motion at this time. Will the clerk please read the name of the next proponent speaker?
Stephen Hayward.
Stephen Hayward shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Stephen Hayward, 4th Eastside YMCA. There are certain things that inherently make people less likely to be the victim of an assault or a mugging. Walking down the street with cowboy boots and a perpetual scowl, a bulge in your jacket pocket, or the knowledge of the mugger that every potential victim is carrying a firearm. This is an obvious deterrent. The stats on guns are clear. Trying to control them does not work, and having them reduces gun crime rates. I spent a couple of weeks in Canada this summer with my church on a mission trip, and I was talking to some of the Canadians about guns, and they said, nobody has guns up here. It's very difficult to get a gun in Canada, and they said, we don't have shootings, we have stabbings. And so I'm very, very pro gun rights. And so I was thinking about that. I was thinking, am I wrong for about the rest of the trip? I was thinking that. The last night, we are loading up the vans to go to the airport the next morning. And our missionary walks in and he says, hey, only one person at a time out there loading up the vans because I just heard gunshots. There were people shooting it out. We were at a school. There were people shooting it out not 2 blocks away from us. Gun control does not work. The young people who are going to not follow the law already have the guns, so why not make them available to people who are following the law? Also, addressing a previous speaker, CHLs require neither a large amount of time or money to obtain. They are not very expensive. They're $300–400, and I know this because my family has them. And you can get them within a couple of months. It takes one class, and they take a couple of months to get it to you. Second, businesses love Texas. This is not going to deter them from moving down here. Businesses love us because we have low taxes. And any business that is large enough to be considering moving down here.
Time has been called.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please read the name of the next off-board speaker? Nathan Capper shall come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nathan Capper, Houston YMCA. This debate has turned into a debate about gun control. This debate is not about gun control. This is mandating that every citizen in the state of Texas over the age of 18 is mandated to have a firearm. There are roughly 25 million people in the state of Texas. That creates millions of potential tragedies to happen. Obviously, the danger of everyone over the age of 18 carrying a gun is enormous. People leave their guns out on the kitchen counter for 2 minutes, and their kid picks it up. It's ridiculous. The bill states that welfare recipients will be provided with a gun. For the most part, people on welfare are in a low socioeconomic standing and often make poor decisions. Now we're going to put a gun in their hands at the expense of the taxpayer. What about a bar? What about a school or a place of worship? What about a courtroom or a voting place? Everyone around is going to have a gun.
Mr. President,
what about the people with criminal
as
history?
you were saying,
Adding that, people with felony record would not
Does this
apply.
yield?
And what about other crimes? What about misdemeanors? Section 1A of the bill states that firearms is a small arms weapon, a rifle, pistol from which a projectile is fired. Why can't we use a taser instead? Why does it have to be something lethal?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Will Brigham Forward Member YMCA rise to ask the speaker a question.
Does the speaker yield?
Yes.
Are you aware that when somebody gets a concealed handgun license, they have to be of a certain level of intelligence? Therefore, they should know not to leave their handgun out to where a child with
Time.
lesser knowledge
Time has
cannot
been
get to
called.
it.
Will the clerk please read the name of the next proponent speaker?
Separate, thank that.
There are none.
Seeing none, will the clerk please read the name of the next opponent speaker?
There are none.
Seeing none, the bill sponsor shall now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you. As he was saying, Fort Worth Airport YMCA. Ladies and gentlemen, we come here to help debate, we come here to help promote safety and help promote a better lifestyle for the citizens of this great state of Texas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, great points were put up from both sides. One point that was put up from the opposition side was that the person believes in freedom as well as gun right, but a freedom over gun right. Can I just point out something? We're fighting a war with guns to protect our freedom. People protect their freedom by the right to bear arms. Now, bear arms, not necessarily just to have a gun, but also fight for their freedom and defend for their freedom. Is this bill really a bill over gun control? I believe it is, because it is an aspect of gun control we never take account for. The aspect of enabling defense. Enabling defense. If America and the great state of Texas enables defense, we could be in a better place, such as countries like Switzerland, such as countries in Europe. I'm not saying that those countries are better than us. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying enabling defense makes us stronger. And having a strong defense makes us stronger. Every coach of any major sport, of any major affiliation, will say a strong defense is the best offense. Having a firearm in the hands of every 18-year-old citizen grants that to us. It gives us that defense. Another point that was put out is that 25 million people, are 25 million people really being affected by this bill? Yes, 25 million people are being affected. But are 25 million people being enabled to have guns? No. 25 million people are not being enabled to have guns. Actually, that's less than half of that. When you discount anyone who's younger than 18, anyone who's a sexual offender or a crime offender that has a felony on his record, any illegal immigrants that live in this state because they do not qualify to pay taxes, they do not qualify to register to vote, they do not qualify to obtain a marriage license that's recognized by this great state of Texas, and they do not qualify to have a driver's license since 2009. Ladies and gentlemen, handguns are not meant to hurt people. A great delegate put out something. Firearms do not kill people. People kill people, and I stand by that. And not only do I, but the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the United States government, and this government should back that up. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the point of Texas taxpayers paying for this, okay, we understand. But guess what? Not only in the Constitution of the state of Texas, but in a preamble to the Constitution of the United States, it says, we the people of the United States, in order to perform a perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense.
The chair will now be entertaining a motion for due passage of this bill.
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Stephen Hayward for the Eastside YMCA rise to make a motion
State the nature of your motion.
concerning due passage of this bill as amended.
State your motion.
I move that we pass this bill as amended.
There's a motion on the floor for due passage of this bill as amended. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We will now vote on this motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
In the eyes of the chair, the ayes do have it, and this bill does pass as amended.